everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to talk about my nonfiction bingo. So in my reading goals video that I did very early on compared to almost everyone I've seen do the reading goals videos around the actual year shift, I did my reading goals video I think in the end of November, and I sort of combined a retrospect and a reading goals plan for 2019. And one of my goals was to do a nonfiction bingo. Basically, I wanted to create a read harder challenge for myself, but with a nonfiction focus. So at that time, I had only decided sort of the structure of the challenge. I wanted to have like a bingo card to be able to succeed in the goal if I just got 5 squares in a row to create a bingo, or I could do a cross, but the ideal would be to fill up the entire card and do all of the challenges. And the idea behind the nonfiction bingo was to inspire me to read nonfiction that I might not normally gravitate towards, or that might not necessarily be the first thing I reach for. I wanted to challenge myself a little bit and also have fun with it. So since then I've tweaked a little bit of the kind of challenges I wanted to include. I've thought about it a lot, and I finally come up with 20 challenges for my nonfiction bingo. And I'm probably just going to call this my 2019 nonfiction reading challenge. But I thought that I would share the challenges with you, talk through them in case you would like to join me. I just basically wanted to announce the challenge and let you know that this is how my nonfiction is gonna be looking a little bit in 2019, and hopefully I will do sort of videos with check-ins of the books that I'm reading for each challenge, and possibly do some recommendations along the way. Without further ado, let's talk through the challenges for my 2019 nonfiction reading challenge. The first challenge is to read a nonfiction book published in 2019. The next one is read a nonfiction book that is translated. So obviously this could mean from any language into any other language that you choose. In my case, I decided to make this from a different language into English, but I wouldn't include Swedish because I read them in the original, and I don't really read that much Swedish nonfiction, let's be real. The next challenge is read a art history nonfiction. Then we have read a nonfiction classic. So in the way I interpret classic in terms of nonfiction is basically from the 21st century and backwards. But you could decide on whatever definition of a classic you have. I feel like with nonfiction I consider it slightly different from fiction, because nonfiction is much more easily outdated. So I will go with anything published before the 21st century. Next is read a pre-Victorian history. I feel like a lot of the books that are published within the history genre in nonfiction are World War I or II, or they are focusing on the Victorian period. And while I'm all for those books, and I probably haven't read enough of them to be honest, I think I know even less about the periods before that, and I feel like they are also underread. I feel like they are not as visible in bookstores, in book media, so I wanted to challenge myself a little bit to go further back in history. The next one is read a nonfiction book and then watch a documentary about it. So this is basically your book to movie adaptation challenge, but with a nonfiction spin. So very rarely are nonfiction books made into documentaries. There is actually one recent exception to that, but for the most part nonfiction books are made into fictionalized stories in movies. So this challenge is basically So this challenge is basically to read a nonfiction book about it. Pick a subject, pick a topic, read a book about that, and then watch a documentary about that as well. But the exception to this general way of things is actually, I've read somewhere that I'll Be Gone in the Dark is being made into a documentary TV series. So you could always do that as well if you decided to join me on this reading challenge. The next one is read a nonfiction book about something extraordinary. Next is read a nonfiction book about sports or food. So I really got into, last year I read a book about swimming and I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would. I have never really been that interested in sports. I feel like I have not really enjoyed sports in my personal life and I haven't really been interested in reading about it. But more recently I've read the book about swimming. And also, last year I also read a book about ballet, and I feel like sports nonfiction is actually kind of a big genre, so I just wanted to challenge myself to read more of that, but I realized that not everyone are interested in sports, so I thought a good combination would be sports or food, because I feel like generally people either like sports or food at least. Next is read a nonfiction debut writer, then read a popular science book. I was considering making challenges for specific genres within popular science like physics, chemistry, mathematics, which is something that I really want to get into more, but I didn't want to be too specific to feel too restrained by it, because science is already something that I am not necessarily drawn to automatically. I feel like I'm interested in science and I really want to get into science nonfiction, but it isn't the first thing that I reach for. So I just thought that a general popular science, which for me is not going to include natural history because I read enough of that without having any challenges. It wouldn't be a challenge for me to read natural history. Next is read a book about a place you'd like to go. So obviously I said a place you'd like to go rather than visit, mostly because I wanted to make it possible to choose a place that doesn't exist anymore, that's in the past, or that's a place that it's very difficult to get to. So basically it's like any kind of travel writing or any kind of nonfiction book that deals with a particular place or a point in time that you would have liked to go to. Read a nonfiction book published by university press. So that is something that I mentioned in a video quite a few weeks ago, that I had realized that Yale University Press has done a lot of interesting nonfiction books, and in particular the book that sort of made me realize that was Bill Evans' How My Heart Sings by Peter Pettinger. And I was also, someone commented on that video when I mentioned the Yale University Press thing. Someone commented about other university presses that does a lot of interesting nonfiction. And I feel like university presses are really underrated. They do a lot of amazing things that no other publishing house would do. They take a lot of chances on niche topics, and I feel like a lot of people would find interesting things if they were open to discover them through these presses. So that is a challenge that I'm trying to promote people to look beyond Penguin and Vintage and all of those amazing publishing houses, definitely, but there's more out there. Next is read a nonfiction microhistory of an object. Read a nonfiction natural history of a non-predatory animal. This is mostly for myself because I tend to gravitate towards the predatory animals, the big animals with a lot of amazing skills and often a lot of intelligence. There's so many other animals out in the animal kingdom, and I am definitely gonna make this year the year that I explore what else is out there. The next challenge is read about something ordinary. So I made the extraordinary and the ordinary to, in my mind, I see extraordinary as something that feels revolutionary, as groundbreaking, or as just something wondrous. So obviously your definition of those things. And something ordinary I see as something recognizable or relatable. So I sort of see it as the perfect challenge for a memoir, for example. But again, it all depends on your own definition. That's how I will interpret it. And the last challenge is to read a biography of an inspiring woman. So I thought, in part, I wanted to make a challenge that dealt with biography, but because I think it is one of the most underrated and fantastic genres within nonfiction. I feel like it is harder to get into because they are often very big books. But they have so much to offer, which is something I have mentioned I really discovered last year. And I thought that I would specifically focus it on women because I feel like in general, biographies about women get a lot less attention compared to men. And also it would be a perfect challenge to do in March for Women's History Month. So those are my 20 challenges for my nonfiction reading challenge in 2019. I feel like these are challenging enough that it will make me branch out slightly from my comfort zone within nonfiction. I feel like generally I don't have that much of a comfort zone. I like to read a little bit of everything, but I still feel like I tend to read mostly the same areas of nonfiction, and that is one of the reasons I wanted to create this, to inspire me to read slightly outside of the core comfort zone, to maybe take a chance on some things that I might not necessarily otherwise do, and to have a lot of fun with nonfiction this year and to read deeper and wider, I guess. So let me know if you think those challenges sounds like fun, and also definitely let me know if you're planning to join me. But as I said, I hope that I can do a little bit of a check-ins with this challenge and talk throughout the year about the books that I'm reading for the challenge, and hopefully do some recommendations and things like that along the way, because I really enjoy talking about nonfiction and sharing my enthusiasm for this genre of literature, and I hope you are enjoying that as well. So yeah, that is all I had today. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.